We make the mistake as hosts thinking that those are our customers. They're not our customers.
Right. I'm loving this rule. I think this is a fantastic rule that they're implementing.
So now think about what they're really saying.
How can you kind of get that guest to remember your property name? Build that book of business now.
That is something that a lot of people probably need to change right now.
Yeah. I think VRBO is going to follow suit or has pretty similar rules to this anyway. So you're going...
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Shawn Moore. We're back with Whiskey Wednesday with producer Jake Sheehy.
Happening?
What's up, buddy?
How you feeling?
Good, man. How's the weekend?
Pretty good, man. Easter was fun. Had a good time with the family. Stayed around. Didn't really do much.
Nice.
Hanging out.
Yeah. Nice. Good. We hosted a party in the morning and then went to another party in the afternoon. So we were kind of on the go all Easter Sunday. So it was.
How was the egg hunt?
It was fun.
Did they find the $100 bill this time?
Yeah. I guess who got the $100 bill?
Who?
Guess who? This guy.
No way, dude! You got the $100 bill?
$100 bill.
That's exciting. How the kids feel? Were they a little jealous that time?
So the kids do theirs, and there's like a bunch of. He puts out like 7 20s or something, and then the rest of them are candy.
Right.
The adults, he puts $100 bill out, and the rest of them are empty.
Come on, dude!
We all run out. So my father-in-law does that. It's kind of fun.
That's a fun game to do.
Never got it. Never. I've been in that family now for 25 years. Never got the $100 bill.
Well, I'm glad it happened this year. Yeah. This is a lucky year, man.
Lucky year, 2025.
Oh, it's lucky, but I mean. Maybe if you're on the Airbnb platform, I don't know if you're thinking so. I mean, maybe. What do you think about these changes? Got some big stuff.
Changes always. It always shakes it up. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Some of the new policy changes, right?
Yeah, let's go through these. Okay, so
let's. These are brand new policy changes. Let's kind of give the audience a little bit of a heads up,
right?
And so, lots of different changes, mostly around communication and around collecting money. And so we'll go through that. A lot of people are saying, "Oh man, what are we going to do? How are we going to market? How are we going to communicate?" Well. A lot of these changes, they should not be a lot of surprise.
Right.
And to be honest, I don't think they're bad changes.
No.
Hosts forget that they are borrowing somebody else's customers. And so at the end of the day, if you don't like the rules in somebody else's sandbox, you go build your own sandbox and play your own sandbox, right? Like my mom taught me that early on.
Right. And I mean, they're big enough so they get to call the shots. You kind of just got to play whatever they decide. But I think most of these they make sense to me. Yeah. Like I'm not upset by them or anything like that. It feels like it's good.
Let's see some of the main. Let's highlight them and kind of give our opinions on them.
Okay. All right. Let's start with the first one. Direct booking links in your guidebooks. Should I read these off?
Yeah.
This is what one of our members, James, said. Shout out to James O'Hilliger. Yeah. I think that's his name. It seems Airbnb is really trying to control what you can do with guests even after they have stayed with you. I just received the below email from TouchStay, which I use for my digital guidebook. Here's the email. It has come to our attention that Airbnb's AI is now actively reviewing the content of links sent via their messaging platform. Specifically, they are focusing on sections in guidebooks that promote alternative booking avenues. If a guidebook includes a book again section or similar content promoting platforms other than Airbnb, there's a risk that the host account may be delisted. What's your take?
Well, I mean, you're not going to get away with a whole lot with AI anymore,
right?
And so,
true.
So now think about what they're really saying. They're saying, "Hey, listen, you can't. You're procuring this business." On our platform.
Right.
Airbnb is saying this. Airbnb is saying, hey, you're using our platform to get this business. And then you're sending them this other stuff that's saying, hey, by the way, when you rebook, forget about Airbnb, come direct to me and you're going to save some money.
Right.
And so when, it's no surprise that Airbnb is saying, hey, listen, we don't like that. And now that we have the capabilities of scraping guidebooks and we can check out links and everything else in the guidebooks. They're going to say, "Hey, we don't like that." Right. Now, I don't mind it.
Right.
I really don't mind it. It's their customer. We make the mistake as hosts thinking that those are our customers. They're not our customers.
Right.
And if they want to rebook with you, obviously we want them to come back. We want to stay top of mind. But really the right thing to do is say, okay, Airbnb is still going to get their cut. Airbnb doesn't care if you're trying to put out guidebooks and you've got marketing campaigns that are going out. If that customer was procured procured.
Procured. I'll go with it.
Whatever that word, the word is, right? What if that customer was originated on Airbnb? Airbnb is saying, hey, listen, we spent a lot of money to keep this customer base. Right. And there are a lot of people who want to book properties on this customer base. They like your property. If you're going to stay top of mind and get them to rebook, we'd really appreciate you rebooking on Airbnb. Right? Is what they're saying. And then they're saying, and by the way, if you're not going to do that, and you're going to try to get them somewhere else, well, we don't like that. And so we might not let you operate on Airbnb anymore. So
it makes total sense.
Yeah.
Now I got to ask, okay, so we talked about your book of business. How can you kind of make this book of business now? I mean, I guess the stay is so good, or they remember the location, or how can you kind of get that guest to remember your property name? Build that book of business now.
Yeah, it's staying top of mind, right? So marketing is all about three things: attract a customer, get them to stop the scroll, get attracted, like stop and look at your stuff. The next stage is converting a customer. And then the next stage is retaining a customer.
Right.
Well, it is a lot easier to retain customers than it is to attract and convert them, because they've already had a good experience with you, assuming that you're doing a good job as a host and you're delivering a 5-star experience. Most of your guests want to come back. They don't know how to find you, though. And so we don't do a good job of staying top of mind and being able to send them things throughout the year that they would be interested in. Right. And this is where most people are like, okay, I'm going to send them rebooking campaigns. Hey, come back to my property. Oh, here's a weekend discount. Oh, hey, by the way, we had just a cancellation. And it's all these book me, book me, book me, book me. Well, we travel on a regular basis. We don't always go every single weekend somewhere.
Right.
And when somebody is constantly saying, come back, come back, come back, then we get kind of annoyed with it, and we say, okay, enough's enough, right? I'm not really that interested. I'm gonna block this or delete it, get off your mailing list. And so the way you stay top of mind with somebody, and this is like just marketing 101, is send them items of value. Send them something they would be interested in, right? If I go to, Park City, Utah in our backyard and I had a great time and I leave, and then I get something from the host of saying, tell me different festivals going on, different things, different events that are happening, different restaurants in the area. I'm still interested because I probably am going to go back and I'm interested in seeing that. I just might not be going back now. And you're not being annoying by saying, come back to my place.
Right.
What you're doing is sending me stuff that's nice and valuable and I like. And then ultimately, when I am ready to go back, guess who I think about?
Right there.
Exactly.
Top of mind. Yeah. I love it. That's a great answer. Great answer. Okay. Up next, mandatory fees. I'm loving this rule. I think this is a fantastic rule that they're implementing. Any mandatory fees not included in a listing's total price at checkout are no longer allowed. This is from the Airbnb website right here. Examples of mandatory fees include utility fees, extra guest fees, pet fees, resort fees, management fees, destination fees, HOA fees, and taxes. Whew.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
I think it is. And I think it does is levels the playing field, because part of marketing is pricing, right? And so what is happening is a lot of people are saying, listen, I'm going to use that front end really low price. It's
tracked.
Yeah. It's like, I'm going to, here's your, $39 flights each way. But then by the way, it's $150 for this bag. It's $150 if you want an aisle seat. It's $150 more. And it's kind of that discount airline, tactic. Instead of just saying, hey, we're going to be Delta and here's the price.
Right.
And everything else is included.
Right.
Maybe, if you're not a whatever member, you're going to pay for your bags. But
right.
Going back to Airbnb, maybe that wasn't a good analogy. No. It reminds me of like the discounted airline stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hosts that are trying to show really low nightly rates because that's what's published, gets somebody's attention, and then all of a sudden they tack on all these fees. And I like it where I personally do like that everything's included. I think it helps the hosts that are not interested in nickel and diming their guests the most. And somebody that is using that as a business practice is probably frustrated with this. But I actually personally like it because we are of the mindset that we're going to keep the fees as low as possible and as minimal as possible and just charge cleaning and taxes, and everything else is, it's going to be in there. Pet fees are another one, right? When you're pet friendly and having those fees that are in there and showing up makes a difference. And so some properties that are pet friendly are going to get hurt a little bit, because that's another one that I could see going a little bit as a host, being like, I don't know if I want that in every stay, because if somebody doesn't have a dog, I'm not charging that nightly rate. And if they do have a dog, now it's publishing on my nightly rate across the board. So some of those are a little bit like,
that's a new level I haven't thought about yet, though. That's a great point.
Yeah, when you have like, or pool heat, right? When they select, but I think we need to dive into it a little deeper. My guess is when it's optional fees and it's not disclosed in the total price, does it say anything about that? Like, if it's a fee that's not charged to every guest at every stay, because a guest a lot of times can opt out of pool fees or pool heat, right? That's something that's not necessarily a moneymaker for the host, but the host is saying, hey, listen, if we're going to heat it, we need to know we're going to charge you for it because it's expensive. Guests with dogs, the guest without a dog is not going to pay as much as the guest with a dog, right? And so because of the extra cleaning fees or pet fees associated with that. So I'm not sure about the optional fees. Have you looked into that one? Does it say anything about optional fees?
I mean, I can go down here, but it may be a couple moments of silence. So I was just going to kind of...
No, if we don't know it off the top of our head, we should look into that. But I do overall like...
It's a great answer, though. I didn't even think about that with the pet fees.
Yeah. If it's a fee that's not charged to every guest, that could hurt you a little bit, because you're going to show a higher nightly rate and everybody will be kind of splitting that cost or paying a little bit extra. Because if you're a host and you're trying to protect yourself against those ones, you're saying, okay, if 80% of my guests bring dogs, I'm going to put that in my fee, and it's just going to be the nightly rate. We're not going to worry about it. But those 20% are paying a little more than they maybe should have.
Yeah.
So kind of goes both ways.
Okay, that's a really interesting one. I just like the transparency of it.
I do too. Overall, I like it. I think it's a good policy. I think it levels the playing field on how things are priced and how they are put out there, and then not charging any other, that's the other thing. They don't want any of these fees off the platform.
Right.
It's like, if it's not on the platform, you're going to have the potential to get delisted.
I mean, here we go. That segue fantastic into our next one. Reservation fees here from the Airbnb platform. Requesting, sending, or receiving payments outside of Airbnb is prohibited. This includes the cost of reservation and fee payments related to reservations. This just seems like you're keeping the guest safe. Like if a host is saying, hey, Venmo me the reservation fee, and then, the host could say, this is just a fake scenario here, but the host says, oh, I didn't receive the payment. And the guest goes, contacts support and says, hey, I Venmo'd them. Right. Airbnb goes, why'd you go off platform? Like, what do you expect it to do now? So it's just kind of keeping you safe. That's how I'm taking this.
Right.
What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you're operating on Airbnb, keep it on Airbnb. It's going to protect you. It's going to protect the guest. And sometimes, like we have members. One of our strategies is when we get a booking, we reach out to that guest and say, "Hey, Jake, you just stayed in my property. You're checking in on Friday, leaving on Sunday. How about I'll give you Thursday or Sunday night for a discount, so you can either come early, stay late, maybe stay over another night, whatever you're going to do, but and ultimately charge for that." There's a lot of our, even within our Vodyssey family, that I know that say, hey, listen, we just reach out to the guests, they say yes to that, rather than recreate a new reservation or anything else. We just Venmo them and we block it on the calendar. Can't do that. And you need to keep it on the platform. The money needs to be exchanged through the Airbnb platform. That's where the guest came from. And so I think I feel like it's common sense to say, hey, listen, even though we've been able to navigate some of these other things, the reason you've been able to get away with it and navigate it is because Airbnb hasn't had a very good way to track it. Right. Well, as AI continues to develop and everything else, it's pretty easy to track that stuff. And so just think about it and say, where did the business start from? Did it start on Airbnb? Well, then everything I do needs to be kept on that platform so that I can operate within those rules. Right. And so, overall, the guest is going to be Airbnb's number one concern and guest experience. And as hosts, we kind of agree that we're okay with that when we take and go choose to do business on those platforms. I get a lot of people that say, man, Shawn, it seems like you're always on Airbnb's side. It seems like you always take the understanding of what they're doing. Well, maybe not. They're running a business and we're running businesses. And this is why I tell people, go learn how to run a business off of the OTAs, off of those platforms, because that's also where I think that most people should evolve to, and everybody just stays on these OTAs.
Right.
Because there's millions of eyeballs. Well, if you're going to choose to do that, there's going to be a cost associated to that and rules associated to that, right?
I love it. All right, so let me just pick your brain for a second, kind of off topic here. Do you think, with these changes, some people are maybe upset with these or whatever. Do you think there'll ever be a change or a shift to VRBO now, VRBO, or other states? Do you think?
I think that they're all going to have very similar rules because the rules make sense, for them as businesses, right? They're spending a lot of money to keep those customers booking on that platform, and if you're going to be a host and you're operating on that platform, the last thing they want is that business that you're trying. What all these rules are trying to keep you from doing is cherry picking their customers. That's it. That's all they're trying to do. They're saying, listen, we don't want you cherry picking our customers. We don't want you, we want the customer experience to say hi. We don't want any sort of bait and switch type stuff and charging, hey, by the way, I need you to do this off the platform and charge you this here and charge you that there. And we won't tell Airbnb or VRBO. They're all going to have a version of these rules. So no, I don't think that it's going to, usually anytime there's major policy changes, you hear people and hosts say, okay, I'm going to shift from this platform to the next. It's not that easy to do, first of all. If your business is built on Airbnb, you don't just shut it off and say, I'm going to go over to VRBO and start up, or vice versa. And so might sound good. It's like the people that say, hey, if so-and-so wins presidency, I'm leaving. I'm not staying. Very few of them leave.
I know, but then if you're just going to leave, you go to VRBO, but I think VRBO is going to follow suit or has pretty similar rules to this anyway. So you're going to, just come on.
Very similar rules. And because the rules are there again to protect their customer base.
Right. Well, then this is our next one here. The cancellation, refund, and rebooking. I need a little bit of education on this one. I've read it a couple times, but okay, here we go. Let me read this. We removed the requirement that a host cancellation must be within 30 days of check-in before Airbnb provides assistance with rebooking the canceled reservation. So this is saying that the host, if a guest books your now this is me asking pretty much. Okay. If a guest is booking your property and then that guest is messaging you on Airbnb and is being kind of rude or something, as the host, you can cancel that booking prior to the 30 days. You can go, okay, they're already giving red flags here. I don't want them in my property. And you can wipe yourself clean of that, right? That's what that's saying?
Well, it's saying now, and it doesn't mean that they're just a problem. You could be selling the property. You could be, there could be some scheduled maintenance, whatever. You're just wanting to cancel the booking. It's saying that now that they removed the requirement that they weren't going to help unless it was within 30 days of the stay. Now they're saying that prior to 30 days of the stay, that they'll still be able to come in and assist with that cancellation. Okay. Doesn't mean, I don't see anywhere that means you got to be really careful canceling bookings as a host. Because you can get penalized for it on Airbnb for sure. You better have to have a really good reason for the cancellation, and they to not get penalized. But this I'm reading is saying that they weren't helping unless it was within 30 days. Now they're willing to help if it's even further out than 30 days.
Gotcha. Okay, so what are these kind of penalizations that you could get? I'm curious about that now. I kind of want to pick your brain on what are some of the consequences you do that? So
think about your rankings will drop. Right. That's the biggest thing. You can get your rankings can drop significantly. You might have been operating on page 1 or 2 because you're a good host, and it's like getting a bad review. You do some cancellations, and all of a sudden, just like if you get a bad review, all of a sudden you're on page 10 before you know it. And so those types of they're gonna throttle your exposure, if you will. They're gonna say, okay, this is now becoming more of a problem child. Those OTAs want 2 things. They want to make money with you, and they don't ever want to hear about you. Right? And if they do hear about you, they want to have 5 stars because that's all. They're just getting good feedback. People are giving you good feedback. The last thing they want is somebody calling customer service and saying, hey, Shawn did not do a good job at my with my stay and this and that and the other. Same with cancellations. Cancellations are a pain in the butt. People call customer service. They have to get involved. They don't want to get involved in the bookings. And so when you become a problem child, they're saying, okay, we're throttling this exposure to teach them a lesson. If that doesn't work, we'll just cancel their booking. We'll delist the booking. If you're too much of a problem, they will cancel the booking. The booking, the listing. They'll cancel your listing and suspend your listing.
That's okay. Well, that makes total sense with these rules. I mean, especially if with the fees and things, people are just complaining. They go, let's just get rid of this. You know?
Right.
Okay. So say your property gets delisted. I mean, what do you do then?
Well, sometimes you appeal it. Sometimes you can get it back.
Right.
You got to look in the mirror and say, what did I do to get delisted? Did
that's
I do
important.
Wrong?
I think that's an important step right there.
That's a hard step.
Is
to look and say, okay, what did I do to get, did I make a mistake? Did I not handle something correctly? Was my property not up to speed? And so what caused me to get delisted, and am I willing to change it? And if I, sometimes you got to apologize and get your, say, hey, listen, I've got everything changed. And a lot of times they will relist properties. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes you're not getting it back. And you as a host can get blackballed. And that's rare. It doesn't happen all the time, but it has happened. I've heard it. But I have heard of many properties getting suspended on their listings or delisted. They have to call in, they have to figure out and work it out, and it can be a process. And it's a nightmare for the hosted, and it's also a nightmare for Airbnb. They don't want to deal with it, and they're not. I promise you, they're not really excited when you call them to get back with you really soon, right? And so it's a constant staying and trying to get it figured out, and so it's better to avoid that and do the things that you need to do in business to not have that happen, because it's a pain. Yeah.
Well, those were the rules right there. I'm so sorry. We have one more. The host damage protection terms. Okay. This seems, once again, kind of like a question here for you, but this seems like it's protecting the host. So even if it's like a seasonality property or a high occupancy property, this seems like this is good for you, right?
Yes and no. Read it.
Okay. To the extent that a responsible guest fails to satisfy their primary obligation under the terms to pay you as a host for the damage requests that they are responsible for, Airbnb agrees to guarantee that obligation by paying you for physical loss or damage to your eligible property as a result of an eligible loss, subject to all terms, conditions, and limitations of these host damage protection terms.
Yeah. So they're getting in one, they're saying, hey, listen, we're not going to allow a lot of third party charges for insurance damage waivers. We don't accept security deposits, all that stuff anymore. They've got their own air coverage. And there's a lot of eligible, when you read that, there's a lot of words that say, it says eligible lost, eligible property.
Right.
They're the judge, jury, and executioner on eligibility. And so I do not like their insurance that they have. And I don't like that they're, and it sounds like when you read, when you go back to this, go back to the thing on Airbnb where it shows more of those terms.
I just clicked over and got that Wi-Fi. There's a long list of them.
Go back up higher.
Go up higher. Yeah, here we go.
There we go.
We got all these down here.
Right.
I mean,
okay. So that's too much to read right now. But what I was reading through it is, what happens is they've got their air coverage and they want people to use that in lieu of security deposits. And they say, we're going to cover those damages. I don't like it, because then they go back and they ask the guest and the guest gets to say whether they agree with the damages or not. And it's just back and forth. And from everything I've heard, very seldom do they cover the full amount of the damages. There's third party damage insurance that we can do. And now, if you are using a property management software or anything like that, and that's disclosed and that's a charge that you're charging, you're okay to do that. They make it sound like you want that they're going to force you to use this air coverage that they have. I still don't think that's a good option for the host. Okay. Because these other insurance carriers that you can use, and there's a number of them, they don't even contact the guest. When the guest leaves and there's a ripped sheet or there's stained on something and it's under a certain amount, they just send you the check. You take a picture of it. You show them the proof of the damage. They don't question it. They send the check and it's done. Airbnb is, from my experience and what I've heard from a lot of people, is they send in the damage and then they go back to the guest and it's this back and forth. And then you might have $500 of damage and they say, well, we're going to cover 112 of it or 150 of it, or it's just this arbitrary lower number. And so I'm not a huge fan of that.
That's interesting.
And because they usually always side with the guest. They're always going to be more inclined to side with the guest. The other reason I don't like it is now all of a sudden we are kind of flagged on our listing as kind of a problem. Again, they're having to get involved with us, and there's back and forth and everything else. That's not good for your listing and your reputation with Airbnb. And so I prefer the third-party damage waivers, insurance carriers that are out there, because nobody knows about it. We do.
Right.
As the host, the guest pays a $59 pass-through expense. We tell them what it's for. No, there's no questions. We just go. Unless they do some major damage above $3,000 to $5,000, depending on where your damage waiver is set at. You're not even contacting the host. And so I wouldn't do that. That's not operating off the platform. That's still going to be disclosed in the payments and everything else. So I don't want you to think that I'm saying, no, you go off the platform. I'm saying as long as we still have the option for these other third-party damage waivers, I'm going to go that direction every time. I'm voting there. Unless, there might be a time when Airbnb comes back and says, you have to use our damage protection insurance, and it's a charge, and then we'll take care of that. So they're not there yet. And so as long as they're not there, I'm not there either. And we're going to stick with
makes total sense.
Third party.
I like the way you explain that. Makes total sense. I would understand why they would go with the guest, instead of the host. If the host says, these sheets broke with $500 worth of damage, it makes total sense why they would lean towards more of the guest, because they want the guest on their platform. They already have plenty of properties. They don't need your property. Right. So that makes total sense to me. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they're always going to be host-centric, like favoring the host, everything else. I mean, there's no reason to try to make that argument that it's ever going to change at this stage. It's not going to. The hosts need them way more than they need the host at this stage in the game. They needed the host in the beginning a lot because they needed properties. Now there's plenty of properties to choose from. Yeah.
All right, well, that's it. I mean, those are the 6 things right there. We just taught you guys. Okay. All the rules, man.
Okay, well, hopefully that made some got clear. Again, it's just it's just kind of like, hey, listen, don't try to cherry pick off of Airbnb. Just resort to the fact that if you're constantly feeling like I want to pull them off of Airbnb, go learn the skill to actually build your own book of business off of Airbnb. Like we show people and talk, maybe on the next Whiskey Wednesday, we can talk about marketing, right? We'll talk about how do we generate our own business? How do we attract people off the platform to stay in our world, right? Yeah. Maybe that's something we could talk about. But if you're like have a tendency that you want to pull them off of those platforms, maybe say, I'm going to take that energy and effort and put it into building my own book of business off the platforms, because that's a pretty fun game to play as well. Yeah.
And if you have your guidebook and it's got the book now or whatever, your direct booking link, go change that.
Yeah, go change that. I would go change that. That is something that a lot of people probably need to change right now.
Yeah.
Is go into their digital guidebooks, because AI is going to flag you, and you don't want to get flagged for something like that. Just go change it to your Airbnb listing link so that they can come back. And so if you want to use a different guidebook, have duplicate a guidebook for your direct bookings and stuff, that's okay to do. But use one if you're the one that's loaded up to Airbnb. I'd go change that right now. It's a good point. Yeah, that's your to-do list. Those of you that have a digital guidebook. So guys, we'll wrap it up today. We always appreciate you spending your time with us. Hopefully you got some value out of these conversations. If you know somebody else that would like to be a part of this conversation, share the show. Those things help us. If you have more than 30 seconds, like it or review it on whatever platform you're watching or listening on. The final, most important thing I ask you at the end of every episode, pick that one thing you can do today, start building that life you don't want to take a vacation from. Cheers, my friends. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. Share this with other people you think need to hear about it. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Hey Grace, is there a website?
Yes! For more amazing content and expert advice, visit Vodyssey.com.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.